Is it time to panic about Rafael Devers? Lots of things to be concerned about as the Red Sox designated hitter and face of the franchise added another pair of strikeouts to his resume on Sunday.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part, it's completely free. So you might as well tune in because Locked On is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Welcome to the show, and normally I would say happy Monday, but it's not so happy of a Monday for us Red Sox fans today, as the Red Sox did not exactly start off the season like we wanted them to. They dropped 3 of 4 to the Texas Rangers over the weekend, and we were all riding such a high after opening day when the Red Sox earned a 5-2 win on the back of Wilyer Abreu and a strong effort on the mound from Garrett Crochet. But things for the Red Sox went downhill from there as they lost 4-1 on Friday, 4-3 on Saturday, and 3-2 on Sunday. So I'm going to be talking all about the series on today's show, good things and bad things, and what to look out for moving forward. And I'm also going to be talking about a couple top prospects and the big day that they had in AAA, featuring a clip from one of those prospects. So you will not want to miss that. But when we think about this major league team, there was a lot of hype going into the season surrounding this team. And I do understand that it's easy to get in your head and say, oh, well, the season's over. They are 1-3. But it's a long season. And the biggest takeaways from this series include competitiveness. They were in every single one of these games this weekend. They just could not get those big hits when they needed them. And if you looked at the roster from top to bottom, going into the season, the biggest area of potential concern that we could have said was arguably the bullpen, because going into this season, the bullpen didn't have a lot of 100% certain pieces. They had a lot of guys who were question marks. And so people were unsure as to whether the bullpen was going to be able to be effective. But the bullpen did not allow a single run in this series against the Rangers. And that's very promising. And the starting pitching also was good. So I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that later on in today's show. But the thing that really was disappointing was the offense. And Rafael Devers has been struggling significantly. On Sunday, he went 0-4 with 2 strikeouts and a walk, keeping his batting average at 0 with a 111 on-base percentage. He has struck out 12 times in his 16 at-bats this season and 23 times in his last 31 at-bats, dating back to the final 4 games of last season. He actually set an MLB record during this series with 10 strikeouts over the first 3 games of a season, which is the most in MLB history. He is not seeing the ball well, and it's not necessarily that he's making poor swing decisions. It's that his timing is just incredibly off. He's late on so many pitches, and he'll get thrown meatballs down the middle and just be behind on it. Something is going on with him. And the question is it's more mental, because possibly the effect of him having to play designated hitter. And we already know that was something that was bothering him a little bit going into this season, was the idea of moving from third base to DH. And then when the Red Sox decided they were going to have Bregman play third and Devers be the full-time DH, that was something that maybe he didn't take as well as Alex Cora made it seem like, because Alex Cora did talk to the media recently and said that Devers understands that he has to do what he has to do to let the team win, and that he was okay with making that move to DH. So maybe things aren't as good as Cora said that they were, because he could be in his head thinking, all right, well, I'm not good enough to play third anymore. What am I doing wrong? And naturally, that mentally is impacting how he performs at the plate because he's distracted by something else and he's bummed over the fact that the Red Sox pulled him off of third base. So I think that is ultimately the biggest cause for this concern. I don't think he's necessarily doing it on purpose to spite the Red Sox because you just cannot do that when you're making as much money as he is making. And I don't think he would just go do that. But what I do feel like is it's subconsciously affecting him mentally and making him feel like he's not good enough because they pulled him off of third base to put Alex Bregman there. So that for sure is a possibility. So because of that, it's led to him not being able to have gotten a single hit yet. And he did post a ground out in his first at bat of Sunday's game. And that at least was promising, not only because he made contact with the ball, but also because it ended up being a long at bat. So he was at least able to push Jacob deGrom's pitch count in that at bat. And he was able to at least put up a competitive fight, which is a sign of him going in the right direction. And then he did take a walk in crunch time in the 9th inning. So that again shows promise as well. So a couple things for the Red Sox to think about here. Maybe giving him a rest day to kind of reset. And maybe he's not in the lineup for today's game against the Orioles because the Red Sox definitely do need to get themselves on track because if they dig themselves too deep of a hole, mentally that's going to be taxing on the players and subconsciously they might start to lose some confidence. So they do need to have a good series here in Baltimore. And it is promising that despite the fact that the top of the order in this series against the Rangers was nearly non-existent in the series, they still put up close games, and that is a direct result of other areas of their game working well. One thing that I will commend the offense on in this series was its base stealing. Lots of guys were able to effectively steal second base throughout the course of the series, not just the super fast guys in Hamilton and Duran, but other players as well were able to pick up stolen bases. Alex Bregman, Connor Wong. So that's a good promising sign for the team moving forward that they still have the small ball skills as a lineup that they've always had. And it's definitely not all on Devers either. Everybody's talking about Devers just because of everything that surrounded him this offseason and the fact that he really was adamant about not moving off of third base and playing DH. So the focus has been on him and how he adapts to that. But there are other players who need to step up. I mean, Jarren Duran, Tristan Casas, and Alex Bregman to a bit of a lesser extent have been pretty quiet overall and need to also click more offensively. Bregman has thrown together a few hits, and that's huge for him to get going. And a lot of times it really does take getting that first hit because the longer that somebody like Devers goes without getting that first hit, the more he's going to continue to get in his head. So the biggest thing with Devers is that he just needs to connect and find a quality pitch to hit and then hit one either out of the park or at least get a strong base hit to get him going on offense. And he is digging himself an even deeper hole by still not being able to do that. And Trevor Story is another one who definitely needs to step up more. This was, as sad as it was, pretty expected because this is typical of what we've seen from Trevor offensively in his time in Boston. But the reason I had a little bit more faith in him going into this year is because he's fully healthy and he had a fully healthy offseason. This was the first time that he's had a full offseason in Boston because he's been injured a lot of the time that he's been here. So he hasn't had a chance to be fully healthy with the Red Sox. And that first year that they got him, he came in late because they signed him really late in the offseason. So I said, okay, Trevor has a full offseason to get ready. So maybe he'll turn things on offensively going into 2025. And what's he doing so far? Not showing that. And he also had a very big spring, which was another reason why I had hope for him going into this upcoming season, was because of the numbers that he was putting up in spring training. It was pretty remarkable how good of a spring he was having overall. And then he goes into opening day and he's, of course, ice cold at the plate. So I'm eyeing those specific players in 1 through 5 in the order. And Duran, Devers, Bregman, Casas, and Story, who all need to play better. Then you go to the next two hitters in Christian Campbell and Wilyer Abreu, both guys who have pretty much been the offense for the Red Sox over the course of these first 4 games. They were the guys who were making everything happen offensively. Wilyer Abreu hit 2 home runs on opening day, drove in the Red Sox sole run in the second game of the series. Christian Campbell hit his first home run of his major league career in the game on Saturday, as well as added a double in that game. Those two are just continuing to be aggressive at the plate, and that's what I love to see. And that makes things really exciting when it comes to the future of the Boston Red Sox and all of these players that could be a part of that. And Wilyer Abreu is certainly making it very difficult for the Red Sox to decide to trade him when Roman Anthony comes up eventually. And that's a decision that's going to have to be made. Is they're going to have to move an outfielder. The question is, which one is it going to be? So that's another thing that the Red Sox are going to have to gamble with when that time comes. But lots of good things to be excited about with those guys. And then you go to the bottom of the order and Connor Wong and Cedar Rafaela. Rafaela was able to pull off a single in Sunday's game. That was promising, but those two players in particular also need to step up offensively. But the big thing was at the top of the lineup in 1 through 5 was not able to hit. And what I will say, as glim as that seems, I'm not super concerned about it long term because I feel like these players are too talented to not turn things around. I mean, let's face it, Rafael Devers is too good of a hitter overall to not figure this out. So I'm asking you to give him a little bit of grace. Yes, it's frustrating right now, and yes, it's a little bit concerning, but do not hit the panic button with Devers. These batters that are all hitting 1 through 5 right now in the Red Sox order are too good to not turn things around. They are just in a slump right now, and once they do turn things around, I think we'll start to see a lot better results coming from them, especially with a team that was able to stay competitive in all of these games. So definitely hang tight there and don't give up hope on this offense after 4 games, because these are all guys who we have seen them do a lot of damage and we know what they are capable of. So they just have to get back to that and get back to being the huge threats offensively. And I have no doubt that they can change that as the season progresses, and very soon we should see more productivity from them at the plate. Coming up, though, an area that was good for the Red Sox in this series overall was the pitching, so I'm going to be talking about that a little bit next. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. There have been some great games so far over the course of this tournament, and you could win lots of money if you just take advantage of everything that FanDuel has to offer. And it could be life-changing money for you. So if that sounds like something you would be interested in, you can definitely take advantage. So definitely make sure that you download FanDuel today and start betting on all kinds of different sports. The Red Sox have officially dropped 3 of their first 4 games of the season against the Texas Rangers. And while that is frustrating, there are some positive takeaways. And one of the biggest positive takeaways is the pitching efforts overall in the series. The bullpen did not let up a single run throughout the course of the entire series. And we were able to see a lot of different guys throw. In the 5-2 win on opening day, we saw Garrett Whitlock, Aroldis Chapman, and Justin Slayton pitch out of the pen. All 3 of them overall were very effective and did not allow a run. In the 4-1 loss on Friday, after Houck's outing, Greg Weisser and Brennan Bernardino came in, both of which did not give up a run, and both of which were question marks going into this year because they both struggled last year. And then in the 4-3 loss on Saturday, Walker Buehler started the game, but then they had Justin Wilson, Zach Kelly, and Weisser again come into the game to pitch. three names, again, that are question marks. Zach Kelly struggled last year. I do feel like his stuff is good, but he struggled a lot due to overusage last year. So I'm hoping they can prevent the overusage a little bit this year. And then in Sunday's 3-2 loss, Richard Fitz started the game, and then Justin Wilson and Justin Slayton came into the game, Justin squared, and got the job done also. So you look at all of these names on there, Wilson, Bernardino, Weiser, guys who people were worried about going into the season. They pitched very effectively. And if we can get a really solid version of the bullpen moving forward, that can be an absolute game changer for this team. All of these guys were incredibly effective, and that was something that I had penciled in as a potential concern going into this season, was just how many question marks they had in the pen. But this bullpen did not even look stressed at all, didn't really get themselves into a lot of messy situations over the course of the 4-game series, which was also good to see. And when you have a guy like Liam Hendriks who started the season on the injured list, it's nice to know that you have other guys who can fill those shoes and be able to still pull that weight in the bullpen. Certainly, I'm excited for Hendriks to come back and for him to get an opportunity to throw in the Red Sox pen. But for now, at least you have guys that you know can tread water. And from a starting pitching standpoint in the series overall, I thought things went well. I talked about Garrett Crochet's opening day start where he went 5 innings and gave up 5 hits and 2 earned runs and struck out 4, did not give up the long ball, which was good, but I was hoping he would have been able to stretch out a little bit longer, but hopefully he can more gradually over the course of the season. And then Tanner Houck started game 2 through 5 2/3, giving up 7 hits and 4 earned runs with 3 walks and 2 strikeouts. Definitely could have been more effective, but the thing with Houck is that we did see him struggle a little bit in the second half of the season last year, and I wondered if that was something that was going to carry over into this season, was his ability to get back on track or not, because after the first half of the season last year, when he was in the Cy Young conversation, he started to struggle a lot more with his command in the second half and his pitch arsenal. He wasn't necessarily being as smart with his selection of pitches that he used, and we saw him put up some not as effective performances in the second half. So I do wonder if this is a little bit of the aftermath of that. He looked overall good. I would not say I'm super concerned in general about Houck, but that's definitely something to think about, is the fact that how he left off last season wasn't necessarily in the best spot. So for him, in his perspective, he's probably thinking, okay, I have to go out there and be a lot more effective heading into 2025. So I'm hopefully going to see him have more effective starts moving forward. And then in game 3 of the series, Walker Buehler made his Red Sox debut, and he did take the loss. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to get through the 5th inning, went 4 1/3, giving up 7 hits and 4 earned runs with 3 strikeouts. He did give up a home run in the game. And the thing about Buehler that I really like is the guy's a competitor. He's tough, and he was so mad at himself after he gave up the home run. I mean, that guy hates losing, and even in his post-game press conference, he was talking about it too and saying, I am so disappointed in myself. I should have pitched a lot better. And I have no doubt that he's going to take what happened in this first game and utilize it in his next start. He did look a little bit jitterish overall, I thought, and that could be a natural transition of him making his first start in a new uniform. So that could have just been some of those nerves there of him wanting to make a good impression on his new team. And that certainly would make a lot of sense in his perspective if that was the case. So if I'm him, I'm moving on to my next start and figuring out how I can be a little bit more effective. With Houck, I think he was just in the game a little bit too long. I think Alex Cora tried to stretch him out longer than he probably should have, and in hindsight, it kind of backfired. With Buehler, I don't think he was in for an inappropriate amount of time. I think he was pulled when he should have been pulled when he started to struggle, but we definitely need to see longer outings from him. The promising thing I will say about Buehler was that he didn't walk anybody, so his command overall was good. He just has to work through some of those jitters and try not to allow hitters to stay in the count and continue to put pressure on him for so long in their at-bats, because his pitch count added up in that game and ruined what could have been a quality start for him. So he did allow some hits. Overall, I don't think his stat line reflects fully how he did. He looked a little bit better to me than the stat line shows. Some of his off-speed pitches were very effective. So I feel like he'll be able to improve a little bit more. And I do think part of it could be just his first game in a new uniform after having the offseason. And then in the series finale on Sunday, when the Red Sox fell 3-2, Richard Fitz, who unfortunately took the loss, ended up pitching. He was strong. He went 6 innings, giving up 6 hits and 3 earned runs while striking out 2. Unfortunately, in that 6th inning, he gave up 2 home runs. So then he ended up getting pulled after that inning. It was unfortunate because his pitch count was really low for a lot of this game. I mean, he only ended up throwing 71 total pitches over 6 innings. So he was pretty much motoring and was very effective until he got to that third time through the order. And it's natural for some of these less experienced starters to struggle when they have the third time through because they're still developing some of their other off-speed pitches. And that's the level that I think Fitz is at right now. He could be a very effective starter the first 2 times that he sees an order. And then as soon as guys start coming up the third time, they seem to start to figure him out. So that's something moving forward that I'm looking at with Fitz, is to see how he's able to develop another pitch to allow him to stay longer in games. It's similar to Tanner Houck, who struggled all the time when he saw the lineup the third time in his outings. It's a very similar concept because Houck would be very effective during the first couple times through, and then the third time through he would end up having to be pulled because he would struggle because opposing hitters would start to figure him out. Then he developed another really solid off-speed pitch to add a third very strong pitch to his arsenal, and that proved to be an absolute game changer for him, and it allowed him to stretch himself out and throw more innings last year than he had ever thrown over his career before. So I definitely feel like Fitz is still a bit of a work in progress in that regard. He doesn't provide a ton of swing and miss stuff either. So that's another thing that I'm looking at with him. He did strike out 4 over the course of 6 innings, which is good, but I definitely would like to see him generate a little bit more of those swings and misses. But if you look at that stat line and think about how little major league time he's had so far, I definitely am not complaining about him recording 4 strikeouts in that game, because that's definitely a step in the right direction for him. I just would like to see him just throw some really strong pitches to completely blow past guys moving forward. So overall, the pitching in the series was effective. I cannot sit here and say any one pitcher was straight up bad. Walker Buehler could have been better. Garrett Crochet could have been a little bit better. Tanner Houck, of course, could have been better. Richard Fitz even could have been a little bit better. But it was their first outing for each of them, so they all need that time to continue to develop and continue to get back into the swing of things so that they can pitch at a competitive level. And hopefully we see a better start from each of them in their second time around. Overall, the pitching was not the issue in this series. It was the offense, and I'm hoping that gets cleaned up. But speaking of offense, 2 very special players in the Red Sox farm system down at AAA had a big game on Sunday, so I'm going to be talking about them next. Just a reminder now that the season has started that you can subscribe to Locked On Red Sox on YouTube or any other podcast platform, as it would be great to continue to have you tune in every day. As frustrating as things can be with this team, especially over the course of the weekend, I am not going anywhere. I will be here every day, whether it's a frustrating day or a really good day because the Red Sox won. If you have never heard my show before, this could be the place for you if you are a fan whose life revolves around whether the Red Sox win or lose, and it determines your mood. And if that's you, this is 100% a good show for you. Even if you're not as psychotic as me, it's still a good show for you to get all caught up with everything going on with Red Sox baseball. So make sure that you check it out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check into Locked On Fantasy Baseball. I do appreciate you tuning into Locked On Red Sox and making it your first listen today, so that can be your second listen. Fantasy draft season has passed, but this fantasy baseball show can keep you up to date on who's injured and who you have to sub out of your lineup, because we want you to win your fantasy league here at Locked On. We want you to be able to have those bragging rights with your friends. And after you finish listening to Locked On Red Sox, you can make sure that your fantasy lineup is all set for this week if you go and tune in to Locked On Fantasy Baseball, because I promise you they will give you good insight about players who are injured and when they're coming back, who you have to replace, who might be out for the season, and who's going on an absolute tear that you should sneakily pick up to add to your team. So lots of good guidance coming from them. You can check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Well, the Red Sox look to pick up some more wins as they head to Baltimore this week for a 3-game series with the Orioles. There are exciting things happening in the Red Sox farm system too. And if you think about the Red Sox farm system right now, the AAA team has some unbelievable talent on it, particularly 2 of the 3 members of the Big Three in Marcelo Mayer and Roman Anthony, both of which had a big game on Sunday for the Woes Sox, while Christian Campbell is up in the majors and he had just hit his first major league home run on Saturday. I'm sure that fueled Anthony and Mayer to continue to play well themselves and attack every at bat and give it 100%. And that benefited them tenfold on Sunday, because Marcelo made a really nice running catch in foul territory in the game, and he recorded his first AAA hit to score 2 runs in the 3rd inning, coming on the 10th pitch of the at-bat. So he was able to put together a really disciplined, really patient at-bat, and it eventually caused him to record his first AAA hit. And then he also recorded another single in the 5th inning. So he was working both offensively and defensively in Sunday's game. And then Roman Anthony hit 2 home runs in the game. One came in the 6th inning with a 412-foot solo home run to right field. And then he also hit a 383-foot solo home run to left field in the 8th inning. So both of them had very solid games. And I actually spoke with both of them at Media Day on Thursday for the Woes Sox, because I am now officially credentialed media with the Woes Sox. So I'll be providing coverage of the Woes Sox for you all throughout the course of the season. And I spoke to Marcelo Mayer in particular, and he was talking about Christian Campbell and how he's really excited for him and hopes his opportunity comes soon to be called up to the majors. And after the performance he had on Sunday, it could end up coming sooner than later. Listen to the full clip.
How are you feeling about the season? You had a pretty big spring, so that was really nice to see, as somebody who has been following your career since you've been with the Red Sox. How did your spring make you feel about your confidence this year?
I'm really excited for this season. I worked really hard this offseason to get my back right, to get my body in a good position. I think for me, more so than just playing well, I was really happy to be on the field again. And I'm super excited for this season.
100%. Yeah, I know. I hope you are, because your numbers this spring were really good. Yeah. Obviously you are so close to being at that level. What do you think it's going to take for you to get to that level, possibly at some point this season, or maybe even?
I don't know. I think a lot of that has to do with the roster that we have up in the big league squad.
Yeah.
And all that stuff is really out of my control. So the biggest thing for me is just staying ready for whenever my opportunity comes.
Yeah, take it day by day, right? And just kind of keep working. I know you are pretty close friends with, Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell. How excited were you that Campbell got his opportunity to be on the Major League roster?
Super excited. I mean, anytime you play with somebody in the minor leagues for a long period of time and you get to see them live out their dream, it's super cool to watch.
Yeah, so for you, too, it's like, okay, he's doing it now, so that could be me very, very soon, too.
Yeah, of course. Not so much for me, though. I'm just really excited to see him live out his dream. Yeah. I know my time's going to come, and Roman's time is going to come, and all these guys' times will come when the time is right, but yeah, we're super excited.
How do you feel about being in the Red Sox organization? I mean, such a historic franchise with so much, success over the years. How does that make you feel?
It's awesome. I mean, it's not every day that someone that's such a high pick gets to play in an organization like this, and I consider myself very lucky to be in a winning org like this.
So as you can see there, Marcelo is very determined to get called up to the majors, and he wants to be a guy that just is going to continue to take it day by day and play his best baseball, and everything will work itself out how it's supposed to. And that is the type of attitude you want to have. you don't want to be a player who overthinks things too much and is constantly in your head about getting that call up, because then what's going to happen is you might try too hard at the plate and it could get into your head mentally, and then you could start to not have as good of performances in AAA. And another thing is you can't really think about the current situation that's going on with a major league team, because if you do, then you're going to psych yourself out in that regard too, and you're going to say, okay, there's no room for me right now on the major league team because the person who plays my position is healthy. So when would I play? For example, because of the fact that Trevor Story is healthy right now, the Red Sox haven't had a reason to say, okay, we need to call up Mayer. And if he gets into his head about that, he's going to start thinking about it, and then naturally it could impact how he's playing now, because he could start to feel a little dejected, like, oh, am I ever going to get my opportunity because the guy who is currently in the majors and plays my same position is totally fine for them right now. So he's trying not to think too much about what's behind him or what's in front of him, and just focusing on the present moment and taking it day by day, and just being Marcelo Mayer and continuing to grow in certain aspects of his game, which I really like. And the reason I'm bringing up Mayer and Anthony is because of the fact that Christian Campbell has already made quite the impression at the major league level. And if you think about what Christian Campbell has done in this short time span, despite the fact that he did not have a good spring offensively, he's really been off to a good start. And that gives us hope for the future of the organization, because obviously you never know with prospects when they come up what type of player they're going to be, if they're going to be somebody who contributes a lot, if they're going to be somebody who comes in and struggles a lot. And I did think that there was a chance that Campbell could struggle at first, especially in the first month of the season, because he's new to the majors and he's having to adapt to that kind of pressure. But he's done everything seamlessly, and his family has been there watching him in support, which I find to be amazing. And he's just excited to be out there. And I'm hoping that because Marcelo Mayer and Roman Anthony both had a big day on Sunday in AAA, that indicates more big days for them moving forward, so that they can find themselves on the major league roster at some point this season. And we could be talking about them in the same way that we're talking about Christian Campbell. This big three is no joke. These players work so hard. They have the attitudes to succeed, and they definitely have the talent level to succeed. And even though things are frustrating right now for the Red Sox, the future is certainly bright when it comes to these young players and the guys who could come up and contribute at the highest level down the road. So even as of right now, we can look at a team that's still finding its groove for the season. But I do feel like once this team finds its groove, things are going to absolutely take off for the Boston Red Sox. And I think we're going to see a team over the course of this season that is competitive, has a chance to win the division, but the top of the lineup has to wake up. I don't know how to emphasize that enough. They have to start hitting the baseball. So please, for the sake of all of us and our sanity, hit. That's the moral of the story here. Just hit. Hits in opportune situations, get yourself on base, and figure out a way to cash in those runs, because your pitching staff deserves better. So be excited for the future with Roman Anthony, Marcelo Mayer, Christian Campbell, and other young players like Wilyer Abreu and Jarren Duran, but also try to be excited about what's here. I do think things will turn around for the Red Sox coming up here soon. So hopefully we get to the point at this time next week where we can talk about them having had a really good week of baseball. So we'll see what happens, but you as a fan can do your job, which is, like I always say, keeping the faith. Go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.